My name's Dan. I'm 46. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the wind smells like red dirt and regret. The summers come hot and dead, like the inside of an engine that's been running too long. The winters aren't cold enough to bury anything, just enough chill to remind you what never healed. I married Rachel when I was 39. She had a son, Jaden, 13 at the time, all long limbs and longer silences. His father had vanished years before, not through death or any kind of noble exit, just through sheer, lazy abandonment. Couple birthday cards a year, never on time. Sometimes a check inside, more often not. That was the man who shared his blood. A name on hospital records. A voice on old voicemails. Gone without ever truly being there. When I stepped into that house, I didn't come to replace anyone. I came to be present. That's it. That was always enough for me. I never asked Jaden to call me Dad. Never expected it. Never even hinted. I knew what I was walking into. A house already lived in. A mother already hardened. A kid halfway through his forming years, with a scar already stitched under his ribs from his father's absence. But someone had to show up. Someone had to stand between the bills and the busted dishwasher. Between the fever at 2 a.m. and the empty medicine cabinet. I volunteered because that's what love is when you don't get the easy parts. I paid for things, yes. But more than that, I invested in time. Real time. Hours in the garage teaching him the difference between a socket wrench and a crescent. Late night drives home from football games. Sitting through every brutal loss and victory. I kept Gatorade cold in the truck. I never missed a parent-teacher meeting. I stayed up with him when he froze up before a science presentation and thought failing meant he'd die. No one saw it. Not really. Not Rachel, who thanked me in half sentences while checking her phone. Not Jaden, who grunted through most of his adolescence like words were rationed. But I kept at it. Kept giving. Not because I wanted credit. Because that's what a man does when he chooses a family not built from blood. The cleats, the gloves, the gear, the orthodontist, the field trips, the Christmases when I stretched my paycheck to make sure there was more under the tree than socks and shame, all of it came out of my account. And I never once reminded anyone. But here's the thing about silent investment. It becomes background noise. You go from thank you to expectation, from effort to assumption, and then eventually to nothing at all. Jaden started shifting around 17. You notice it like a change in temperature. Subtle. Just a few degrees off and suddenly you're freezing. His voice got sharper. He rolled his eyes more. The smirks got permanent. He stopped saying thanks. Stopped looking me in the eye. Little comments at dinner. Shrugs instead of answers. Rachel said it was hormones. He's just growing, she told me. It's not personal. But I'd been around long enough to know what it was. The slow erosion of respect. The quiet replacement of gratitude with entitlement. It wasn't just what he said. It was what he didn't say. He stopped asking if I'd be at his games. Just assumed I would be and walked off. When the check engine light came on, he tossed me the keys and walked away without a word. When his friends came over, he never introduced me. I became a background figure. A chair. A fridge full of food. The man who paid the internet bill. But I swallowed it. Because that's what I'd always done. Swallowed things whole. Bit down on silence and kept smiling through my teeth. I told myself it was normal. That maybe this was just what stepfatherhood looked like. Half a father with none of the love, all of the bills. The first real crack came on a Thursday. Jaden came home from school with that look. The one where you know he wants something. Rachel was working late, so it was just the two of us. He stood in the doorway like a man trying to sell pity. Hey, he said, voice casual. I need like $300. I didn't look up from the invoice I was sorting. What for? He shifted. Stuff. Just school stuff. It's urgent. He never looked me in the eye. I paused. Not because I didn't have it, but because something in me, some small voice that had been gagged for years, finally whispered, "No, not this time," I said. He blinked, confused, like he hadn't expected that answer from the ATM in Boots. "What?" he scoffed. I said no. A pause. Then his face twisted, not with disappointment, not with frustration, but with something deeper, something contemptuous. He stepped forward, chin up, and spit the words that snapped the last thread between us. You never meant anything to us. You're just a paycheck with shoes. Silence. I don't remember dropping the invoice. Don't remember standing up. I just remember the hum in my ears. Not anger. Not disbelief. Just silence. The kind that arrives when someone tells you the truth you've always feared. I didn't say a word back. No lecture. No shouting. I didn't call Rachel. I didn't make a scene. I just walked past him. Out of the room. Out of the house. Out of their lives. Because there's a difference between being unappreciated and being despised. And he'd made that difference loud and clear. I didn't scream. Didn't throw things. Didn't punch a hole in the drywall like the men on TV do when they're betrayed. I simply left. The door clicked behind me. No slamming. Just a clean exit. Like peeling off a coat that never quite fit right. That night, I sat in my truck until the engine went cold. Hands on the steering wheel like I was still deciding which road I was on. But I wasn't. I already knew. There would be no return. No confrontation. No demand for apology. I'd been more than generous. More than patient. And now I would be gone. Not just from the room, but from every part of their lives they had taken for granted. I didn't text Rachel. Didn't call. I drove to a cheap motel on the edge of town, where the walls smelled like bleach and old decisions. I lay on the stiff mattress and stared at the popcorn ceiling until the sunrise turned it gold. Then I went to work. Not to the job that paid me, to the other one. The unpaid one. The invisible one. The one that had cost me more than money. I started with the gas card. The one Jaden used like a lifeline. Cancelled it with one call. Stolen, I told the woman on the phone. She didn't ask questions. Then the phone line. His number had been on our family plan since he was 14. Unlimited data, text, calls. I logged in, removed his profile. Gone. Just like that. The insurance was next. Auto, health, dental. I called the broker. Remove the dependent, I said. He's no longer in my care. They paused, asked if I was sure. I said yes. My voice didn't even shake. Bank account after bank account, tuition savings, emergency stash. A visa I kept on file for just in case. I closed them all. The logins. The recurring payments. The safety nets. All severed. One clean sweep. I wasn't being spiteful. I wasn't punishing. I was simply aligning my reality with theirs. If I was just a paycheck with shoes, then let the shoes walk, and let the paycheck vanish. No notes. No explanations. I owed them none. Rachel noticed first. That night she called 3 times in a row. I didn't answer. She texted, "Did you take Jaden off the insurance? Then, why isn't his gas card working? Then, where are you?" Still, I said nothing. The next morning, she stood outside the motel door. Pale, wrinkled t-shirt, no makeup. The first time she looked real in years. She didn't knock, just waited until I opened the door. "I need to talk to you," she said. I let her in, but only because I wanted her to see the place. One bed, one bag on the chair, my name on the receipt. No trace of them anywhere. She stepped inside like she was entering a stranger's life. "You're blowing this out of proportion," she began. Her voice soft, like she was talking someone down from a ledge. I didn't respond. She kept going. "Jaden didn't mean it. He was angry. Kids say things. You know that." I looked at her, really looked, and I saw it then. The same thing I had seen for years but refused to name. She wasn't angry. She wasn't shocked. She was scared. Not because of what Jaden said, but because I had finally believed him. "I've been in his life since he was 13, I said. My voice came low, steady. "I've paid for everything. Been there when no one else was. And you let him call me nothing." Her eyes filled with something like guilt, or maybe just inconvenience. "I didn't let him. You didn't stop him." Silence. She sat on the edge of the bed like it burned. "He's just a teenager, Dan. They lash out." "No," I said. They reveal. She didn't answer, just stared at her hands. Like maybe if she looked hard enough, she'd find a way to wash them clean. I stood, opened the motel door. Go home, Rachel. She looked up, startled. You're not coming? I shook my head. No, not until I'm something more than a bank account in boots. She left without another word. The motel was quiet that night, quieter than the house had ever been. I didn't sleep well, but I slept honestly. Over the next week, I waited. For calls. For messages. For something that sounded like remorse. But they didn't come. Not really. Jaden didn't reach out. Not directly. He posted something passive-aggressive on social media. A vague quote about people who pretend to care. Rachel liked it. I laughed when I saw it. Not because it was funny, but because I remembered how many times I'd stood outside his bedroom door with a bag of fast food after practice. How many miles I'd driven in silence while he sulked in the passenger seat. How many thousands I'd spent to keep his world spinning. Pretend to care? Kid, I gave up years of my life for you. But I stayed gone. Because when someone tells you what you are, believe them. A week passed. Then came the crack. Jaden broke down on the highway. His car died, old battery, no signal. Rachel called me. Her voice sounded different this time. There's no one else, she said. I said nothing. He's stranded. Still, I said nothing. Then quieter. He's scared. I closed my eyes. Let the silence stretch. Let her feel what I had felt every night. Being treated like a tool until I was needed. I'm not coming, I said finally. But Dan. He told me I'm nothing. So now I am. Click. Later I heard he waited 3 hours on the shoulder before a stranger stopped. Towed to a gas station. Used the store phone to call Rachel. She wired money to an Uber. For the first time, Jaden met the world without my safety net. I wondered what that felt like. When the freefall starts and you realize there's no cushion beneath you. They say kids grow up fast when life stops coddling them. Good. He needed to. The house changed after that. I didn't return, but I heard the stories. From neighbors. From Rachel's sister. From the shared bank account that was now mine alone. Jaden started driving less. Walking more. Took the bus. Dropped out of club sports. Cut his own hair. I imagined him in front of the mirror, scissors trembling. No one there to fix his mistakes. A boy facing consequences, not cruelty. Just truth sharpened by exposure. Rachel texted sometimes. Not to ask me back. Just updates. Like a parent with partial custody. He's working weekends now. He paid for his own textbooks. He sold his Xbox. I didn't respond, but I read every word. Not because I missed them, because I wanted to see if they could live without me. Turns out they could. Just not easily. And that was enough. I watched from a distance. And in that space I began to breathe again. It's strange, isn't it? The peace that comes when you stop funding your own erasure. The house I once paid for, no longer mine. The people I once loved, no longer mine. But the weight I once carried, gone. And in its place, nothing. Just silence. The kind that means you're no longer being drained. It started with a knock. 3 weeks after the silence set in, after the phone calls stopped, after the motel room felt more like a second skin than a stopgap, he came. Not Rachel. Not a message. Not a voicemail dripping with half regret and full manipulation. Jaden. I heard the knock, heavy and uncertain. I waited. Let him stand there. Let him feel what absence truly is. Then I opened the door. He stood like a kid again. Not the 17-year-old with barbed words and a curled lip, but the boy who once asked me if cars could cry when you turned them off too fast. He had grown in height but shrunk in presence. He didn't look me in the eye. He scratched the back of his neck. That nervous tick I knew too well. I came to say I'm sorry. I didn't say a word. Just stared. Let him feel the weight of everything I hadn't said when he called me nothing. I was angry. I didn't mean it, he continued. I shouldn't have said that stuff. I didn't mean it like that. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. But you said it. He nodded. Looked at his feet. Yeah, I did. Silence stretched between us. Not hostile, just raw. Honest. I didn't know you canceled everything, he said. At first, I thought the card was just glitched or something. Then the phone stopped. Then, everything. Couldn't even call you. You said I wasn't anything to you, I said. Why would you call? He swallowed. I didn't mean it like that. I pushed open the door wider. Not as an invitation. Just to get the sun out of my eyes. He didn't come in. I'm trying, he said. I got a job. Part-time. At the car wash on 12th and Memorial. I bike there. I nodded. Not approval. Just acknowledgement. I paid for my own tires last week. $30 from the junk lot. They're loud, but they roll. Still, I didn't speak. I bought my own cleats too. Off some guy on Facebook. Used. But they work. He stood there, listing sacrifices like offerings at the altar of a man who had already left the church. I get it now, he said finally, voice barely audible. What you did. What you gave. I didn't see it before. I do now. I looked at him. Really looked. He was tired. Paler. Leaner. There was dirt under his fingernails, and his jeans had the kind of stains you don't get from lounging around. Good, I thought. He's finally starting to carry the weight. But apology doesn't reset the clock. Not when the damage was carved with precision. Not when he chose to use my effort like it came from nowhere. You can't take back what you burned with one sentence, I said. That's not how this works. I know, he said, quiet. This isn't about money, Jaden. This isn't about cleats or gas cards. It's about respect. Something you only miss when it's already gone. He didn't argue. I'm not angry, I said. He blinked, confused. You're not. No. Just done paying for people who call me nothing. He stepped back. Not offended. Just understanding that the door to who I used to be was closed. Not locked. Not bolted. Just closed. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, he said again. Even if it doesn't fix anything. Then he left. And I didn't stop him. Weeks passed. I didn't hear from Rachel. Good. Let her sit in that silence too. But from time to time I saw Jaden. Not up close. Just at a distance. Like a ghost checking the mirror to see if he still had a reflection. I saw him walking with that used backpack slung low. Saw him carrying groceries alone. Saw him at the bus stop, shoulders curled against the wind. And always alone. Once, I drove past the car wash and caught a glimpse of him spraying soap off a pickup. He didn't see me. Or maybe he did and pretended he didn't. Either way, he didn't flinch when the water hit his shoes. He was learning. One hardship at a time. Not through lectures. Not through love. Through absence. I watched from that distance. Like a man watching a seed push up through hard dirt. Not helping, not watering. Just letting the world do what it does best. Test. He wasn't the same boy who mocked me anymore. The smugness had faded. The arrogance drained out of him like oil from a stripped bolt. Rachel didn't reach out until mid-October. Just a text. Jaden's birthday next week. He's not asking for anything. Just thought you'd want to know. I didn't reply. Birthdays used to be big. I plan weeks in advance. Decorate the garage. Make a cake. Wrap tools like toys. Try to stitch something together from scraps. A memory, a moment, a hint that maybe he'd look back and see who stood there. This time I did nothing. The silence would be the gift. The absence would be the card. Because sometimes, the only way to teach someone what you were is to stop being it. Then one afternoon, I came home from work and found an envelope under the motel door. No name, just thick paper folded once. I picked it up, turned it over, and inside were three things. A $20 bill, 2 5s, and a note, not typed, handwritten. I know it's not much, but it's from my paycheck. Thank you for everything you did. I see it now. That was it. No signature. But I didn't need one. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at that cash like it was heavier than gold. Not because of the amount, but because of what it cost him to part with it. I didn't reply, didn't text, didn't call. I left the note where he placed it, folded untouched on the dresser. Let him wonder if I'd read it. Let him sit with the silence again. Respect isn't something you speak when you're scared. It's something you show when you think no one's looking. A week later, I was back in the garage. Not at the motel, at the house. Not because anything had been resolved. Not because Rachel had asked. Not because I missed anything. Just because I needed tools and they were still there. Jaden came out when he heard the door. Said nothing. Just stood by the wall watching me root through drawers. Then slowly he stepped beside me. "I think the bike chain's slipping," he said. I didn't look up. "Then fix it," I replied. I tried. Still clicks. I pulled out the wrench. Set it on the workbench. Then nodded. "Bring it in." We spent the next 40 minutes adjusting the derailleur. He held the back wheel while I tightened the cable. Grease smeared on his knuckles. I didn't speak. Neither did he. We didn't talk about the note. Didn't talk about the envelope. Didn't talk about cleats or jobs or names. Just worked. Just breathed in the same space. Just stood together in that silence. Not the cold silence of exile, but the earned silence of two men standing on opposite sides of a bridge, neither one crossing yet, but both facing the same direction. And that was enough. No forgiveness. No apology offered twice. No promises made. Just hands on tools and a boy who had begun, finally, to walk forward on his own feet. And for the first time, I didn't feel like dragging him behind me. It didn't end in some grand moment. No tearful hug. No father-son resolution. No warm dinner where things were said that should have been said years ago. That's not how things heal in real life. Sometimes healing isn't a reunion. Sometimes it's just a man learning not to bleed when his old wounds are mentioned. Jaden never asked me to come back. Rachel never apologized. No one fell to their knees. They just let me be gone. And I let them. But slowly things shifted. The silence between Jaden and me stopped being full of blame. It became something else. Not peace. Not yet. But the start of something not ugly. He never said thank you for the years I gave. But he showed up. Once in the garage. Once outside the motel. Once at the mechanic's yard where I picked up side work. He didn't ask for money. Didn't ask for help. He asked questions. Real ones. Do you think this belt's too worn to drive on? What's the best way to torque a bolt without snapping it? Can you look at my resume? It wasn't about repairs. Not really. It was about building something new out of what he broke. One interaction at a time. He never once used the word dad. Never once looked at me the way sons look at their fathers. But he looked at me like I mattered. And that was new. It happened on a Monday. I came home to the little rental I'd moved into. 3 rooms, peeling linoleum, roof that threatened to leak but hadn't yet. On the counter was a manila envelope. No stamp. Hand-delivered. I opened it. Inside, $50 in crumpled bills. And a note. I know it's not much, but it's from my paycheck. Thank you for everything you did. I see it now. Same words as before, but this time in writing, on paper that smelled like sweat and effort. I sat down at the table and stared at it. It wasn't the amount. It was what it cost him to give it. That money could have gone to groceries, gas, rent. Instead, it came to me, not because he owed me, because he finally understood what it means to give without expecting applause. I didn't call him, didn't text him, just folded the paper and tucked it inside my tool drawer. Not to remember his words, to remind myself that respect, real respect, only shows up when it costs the person something to give it. A week later, he showed up with the bike again. Didn't knock, just rolled it into the driveway. It's making a new sound, he said. Might be the bottom bracket. I nodded. Didn't speak. We wheeled it into the garage and got to work. No music. No conversation. Just the click of tools, the hush of wheels turning, the rhythm of two people working in the same silence they once used to avoid each other. But this wasn't avoidance. This was presence. Earned. Gritted through. Made real. When we finished, he wiped his hands on his jeans. Grease smeared like war paint. He didn't look at me when he said it. You didn't have to do any of it, did you? No. But you did. Yeah. Another silence. This one longer. Then, quietly, why? I looked at him. Not with resentment. Not with anger. With the exhaustion of a man who's been asked to explain why he set himself on fire to keep others warm. Because someone had to. That was it. He nodded. Didn't ask more. Didn't say thank you. But when he left, he looked back. And that was more than I'd gotten in 5 years. Rachel tried once. Called me late. Her voice was quiet. Not weak. Just tired. I just wanted to say. I should have said something. Back then. Why didn't you? A pause. Static on the line. I thought if I stayed quiet, you'd stay. I let that hang there. You chose comfort over truth. I said. I know. And now. I don't know. I think he's changing. So am I. She didn't ask me to come back. Maybe because she knew I wouldn't. Or maybe because she'd learned what happens when you pretend silence is neutral. It never is. Silence always sides with the loudest person in the room. In our house, that had been Jaden. Now it was me. I said nothing else. She didn't push. That, at least, was new. Some nights, I'd sit in the garage with the lights off. Not thinking. Just remembering. The way the house smelled after dinner. The way Jaden used to toss his cleats by the door. The quiet click of Rachel's toothbrush when I got home late. None of it felt like home anymore. But it didn't ache like it used to. There's a freedom that comes from detachment. Not bitterness, not vengeance. But the cool clarity of no longer hoping people will see you if they haven't yet. They either will or they won't. And that part isn't up to you. All you control is whether you keep bleeding for people who treat your blood like water. I stopped bleeding. And in that silence, something like peace crept in. Not comfort. Peace. The kind that comes when you finally understand that you were never the villain. You were just a man who kept showing up for a role no one acknowledged. Jaden still reaches out. Not often. Not always in words. Sometimes it's a text. You ever rebuild a caliper on a Civic? Sometimes it's just a picture of the bike. Newly tuned, freshly painted, chain tight. Sometimes he drops off tools I lent him 2 years ago. No note. Just leaves them on the porch. He's not trying to erase what he said. He's trying to outgrow it. That's better than forgiveness. Forgiveness is cheap if it costs nothing. Growth, real growth, requires failure first. He failed. He fell. And now he's crawling forward. Not toward me, but toward something better than what he was. And I'm not dragging him anymore. I'm just standing still, waiting to see if he gets there. So here we are. No reunion. No hug. Just a long, steady walk back from the edge. He's no longer a boy who takes everything and offers nothing. He's a young man now. A broke, tired, learning one hard lesson at a time kind of man. And I respect that. He hasn't earned my trust back. Not yet. But he's working. And work matters. So no, I don't sit at the head of the table anymore. I don't sign checks. I don't drive to practices. I don't wait up to make sure the car's back in the driveway. But I also don't carry their weight. Not anymore. I laid it down. And now he picks up his own. That's not forgiveness. That's a choice. Mine. So let me ask you, when someone tells you you're nothing, are you supposed to keep sacrificing? Or do you finally let them carry the cost of their own disrespect? You tell me, was I wrong? Or was I just done?